So, firstly, ma'am, from touch to pay to open, it's a journey of almost 2 decades. A journey to become one of the top 20 women leaders in fintech. How do you view your journey, and what are some of the life skills and lessons that this journey has taught you?
Well, yeah, it started a long time back, almost just after college, and it was not that I planned to be an entrepreneur. Entrepreneurship was more of an accident to
Hmm.
me. It started out as a freelance project that I had taken up with two of my college seniors, and then somewhere down the line, I got involved in alliances and bringing in all the banking partners and everything to the startup. So I directly or indirectly became a salesperson. I'm not someone who's trained for that profession either. In fact, I was trying to be a journalist. I was studying in Xavier's Ahmedabad for English
Oh.
literature. So that's what I've completed in my as an education, as a formal education. So yeah, entrepreneurship started out as a freelance assignment somewhere that became very serious, and I got more and more involved with my co-founders. And again, as happens with most girls, both of them were from business families in Gujarat. So by the time they were 22, 23, both of them were married off and sent off to different parts of the world. And here I was sitting with a deal with a bank, with one of the cooperative banks in Gujarat to deploy 500 of the terminals that we were trying to develop. And I definitely wasn't the technical person in the team. So it just landed up on my plate that now I need to go, and what we used to take all these LD engineering college students, and we used to give it out as final year projects to get the MVP, or the most minimum viable prototype, developed. But later on, when I start to commercialize it, that was a very big task. And I was looking out to find companies that can manufacture these terminals for us. So it is something like a small coin box, a micro ATM was the idea that I was trying to work on. Something that can be deployed at Kirana stores. It's not as fancy as our ATM machines, which is which takes a lot of power, and it requires a dust-free environment and an AC and all of that. So this was something like those red coin box phones that you find, that can be kept on the countertop of a local Kirana store, and it can be refilled with microcurrencies like cash, coins, and everything, and dispense that. So it solves the problem for the Kirana guy also to refill whatever cash he collects in the day back into the machine as well. So it was solving all of those challenges, but building the technology was out of my, it was literally, I fell face down. And then tried to find a company who can try and build it. It was just sounding too fancy. All these product managers and engineers, they would ask me for product requirement document, and I would be like, "What the hell is that? I don't understand these jargons." And they would ask me for flow diagrams and all of those things. It was too complicated, technical architecture. So I was trying to see if there's some other way to solve the problem, because it was almost a dead end for me at that point. And just trying to one thing that I learned from that journey was that when you reach a dead end, then you will have to try and find a way to navigate yourself around the roadblock on your. So one way to do is you try to climb over it, or maybe take a step back, see if there's another perspective. If you take some 10 steps back, then you would be able to see the larger picture and know that there's a way from this side, and you can just go over to the other side from another route. Probably that's what I did. I found another startup that was solving the similar problem. It was definitely not the same terminal, biometric enabled terminal that I was trying to build, but here was this entrepreneur who was doing this, and he had done a pilot with one of the district cooperative banks in Kannur in Kerala. And same problem of financial inclusion, but being solved through mobile payments. And there's no dependency of developing a hardware or deploying that. Solved a lot of problems that way. So I reached out. I found this guy on Google. There was some New York Times article about him, and I tried to reach out on LinkedIn. But in LinkedIn those days, sending out paid request was part of the paid
Hmm.
membership. So that was another roadblock. But then I found the same guy on Orkut. Those were now, don't judge me for my age, but in those days Facebook wasn't there.
Yeah.
So Okay, long story short, yeah, the person I reached out was Anish. He later on became my co-founder. I landed up joining him in his journey at CashNext because Touch to Pay hardly had a product ready, even though
Hmm.
it had a deal. And we found a lot of synergies in the way we function because Anish being the innovator, he's a technology guy, he can, build things. I had a lot of skill sets around sales, which I did not realize I had. And by sheer accident, I was able to reach out to contacts within the network and pitch ideas and take it to execution. So the ideator to the executor combination kind of worked out for us, and we became co-founders. I shifted to Bangalore for doing startups with Anish. Anish was again struggling doing startups in Kerala, and Kerala in those days did not have Kerala Startup Mission and all the support that you can find right now. But those days people didn't really understand what it took to be an entrepreneur. Similar challenges in Gujarat, and it's strange that Ahmedabad and Gujarat are places that are meant for businesses, but no one really understood how a startup was a different game point, right? Because suddenly you're not talking about profitability, you're talking about equity based fundraising, and not a debt fund that you're taking, not a loan you're taking from someone, but you're giving shares and raising capital, and what is required to reach out to investors, how do you pitch your idea. So those kind of mentorship was things that I found was missing in Ahmedabad for myself. And we figured out that Bangalore had both the network and the ecosystem. And that's how Anish and I moved to Bangalore in 2007. And there started our journey together. But ever since then, till now, I feel a lot of things have changed. A lot of things have changed for entrepreneurs, even in small cities. Kerala obviously has Kerala Startup Mission. The entire government is backing up the entire startup program. That's one place where you see that you don't see it as a Kochi startup mission or a Trivandrum startup mission. One thing unique about Kerala is that it is a Kerala startup mission that is there. Whereas when you talk about states like evolved states like Karnataka, it is still the Bangalore ecosystem or the Mysuru startup
Hmm.
village. Those kind of fragmented. But in Kerala, you see an entire unanimous government and all the machinery trying to work together for startups, not like in a fragmented way. So it doesn't matter whether you're in Penzalmanna or Vadakancheri or somewhere in Kollam, you still have a Kerala startup mission to go back and pitch your ideas to or try to develop your idea alongside. So that is something that we saw has changed over the past years. Even Ahmedabad has seen a lot of strides. In my times, it was mostly a bunch of folks who used to sit outside Atira or at the IM Ahmedabad Kitli, who used to know what it is, telling them I'm running a startup. But
Yeah.
now it's a lot different. There's Head Start. There's a lot of other ecosystem players that have come in, and over the course of years, definitely it's a better time to be an entrepreneur now. And now there's Shark Tank that has popularized and over dramatized somewhere, what startup entrepreneurship is. And a lot more folks have come up with, have access to capital through many of these, forces that are around.
Right. But
Things
when
have,
you,
def-
yes, sorry, you were saying?
things have definitely changed.
Yeah. But when you entered the fintech space in 2006, it was still in its nascent stages. You've seen the category grow through the years. Did you at that point ever think that that is going to be where it is today? I came across a report which pegs it at $31 billion in 2021. I'm sure it's much bigger now. And India is the second biggest fintech hub. Did you ever, at that point, when you were working with Touch to Pay, did you ever think that this is where things are headed?
See, one of the problems I used to face with Touch to Pay, now that was again a biometric enabled, ATM that I was trying to build because otherwise, what we do by dipping the card into the machine, and there's a lot of anxiety around whether the machine will throw the card back or not. All of us go through it. The rural folks will definitely, find it more difficult to deal with. And plus, yeah, so the idea that I was working on was with biometric payment, and I used to wish that there was an Aadhaar kind of a database for me because for me, it was going into Mehsana, going into the villages, literally traversing through all those dusty roads, trying to capture samples of biometric, fingerprint. And there was a lot of challenge around, ये छोकरी काम पता नहीं क्या करेगी मेरा जमीन जायदाद सब लेके चली जाएगी, because kind of biases that used to come into play, right? But compared to now, when Aadhaar is available, the Aadhaar database is available for people to build on. You rightly said, Benita, that fintech was not even a word at that time. It was not even a financial services for that matter. It was about, if you are a startup and you want to deal with something with a bank or a banking interface, you would have to go and do some, mostly the bank contracts would be won by the Infosys, the TCS, the Oracles of the world. And you would have to go and become a sub vendor to a Oracle. So you were always a technology service provider in that time. You didn't have the identity of being a product company also at that point of time. So over the years, fintech definitely has evolved a lot, and India today is, as you rightly mentioned, the second largest hub for fintech. The last numbers we had is around 51 million, not the 31 million. So the latest number stands at something around 51 million as the entire base, and definitely UPI, definitely a lot of things that happened around demonetization, the entire UPI infrastructure, all of it have amplified the growth of fintech. Earlier, it was more around payment gateways and online payment collection, or even cards, credit cards, and different kinds of categories of cards. But the entire demonetization and somewhere UPI, and somewhere even the pandemic. The flip side of that was, a lot of businesses started going online, and hence digital payments kind of became the in thing, or it became the mandate
That's true.
for transactions in India. So a lot of things have added up to why fintech has grown so much, and why India suddenly became the second largest hub for fintech in the world.
Did you foresee this growth? Did you see it coming?
In some bits and pieces, yes, because earlier fintech grew with a lot with the dot-com boom that used to happen in the early 2000s. So suddenly, and then while I was doing my third startup, Zwitch, which was a payment gateway, there was suddenly adoption of smartphones into the market, and suddenly there was a need for building a payment interface that can work on smartphones and
Hmm.
not just on the laptop desktop interfaces. So definitely there was a growth, but yeah, what demonetization did, no one could have planned or got ready for it. There were some startups who got a real good benefit because they were just in the right place at the right time with the right kind of know-how of what is going to happen. But no one had a clue of how big this space would grow, or we thought that probably 2030 would be the time when such kind of growth would happen. That's what I would have preempted. But definitely, whatever with the demonetization and then with the pandemic, a lot of things got, the sector itself got a lot of tailwinds
By
that
15 years.
zoomed up a bit.
It happened 15 years before what you had thought it would.
Yes, approximately at least a decade before. Most of the ones who were working in fintech before demonetization were thinking that we were pegging our bets at 2030, and not on the 2020s for this kind of growth to happen.
Wow. You mentioned $51 million. Could you mention according to which survey? Like, who do I quote for this figure?
Uh, there was something done by KPMG on the fintech landscape. Let me just see if I do
That's
get
okay.
access to that report. Maybe I'll share it with you.
Great. What was your goal when you started out, and what was it about the fintech space that really attracted you to it?
Like I said, a lot of it was accident. My first thing was both my parents were bankers, and I didn't want to land up with a bank job. So I would do anything and everything to rebel against them and tell them that I'm not writing the PO exam. Somewhere that is what got me started on, if you don't want to be working under someone, you better be your own boss. Somewhere that's what got me started on entrepreneurship. And then one thing just led to another. I mean, fintech as a space, it just so happened that I landed up with a, a project that was in that domain. And then it happened to be a space, financial inclusion, something that I saw growing up. Because both my parents were bankers, I always assumed that everyone knew banking. And 2001 earthquake was my year of 12th standard. So as part of NSS cadets, when we used to go back into rural Gujarat to try and rebuild schools, I used to see that there was no SBI ka branch, like my dad was telling me, anywhere available, and there was no ATM for me to go and withdraw cash on. So it was a very problem that I had really faced traversing through rural Gujarat. And because the idea was pretty much on the same segment, I got started on, because it was a personal issue that I thought had good potential, and that's what got me started on it.
And what was your goal? What did you what was it that you set out to achieve?
The entire idea for me was to make fintech financial products more accessible to a larger base of users, because this is something that I figured out even before I reached college, that not everyone knows banking. Especially the times when I used to work with rebuilding schools. So we had this entire project of rebuilding schools in rural Gujarat and around that same time. And what I realized was, the access to financial products was, or the financial literacy itself, forget about the women, in the men itself, it was less. There was a lot of zamindari, people used to go and leave their money with the zamindars or with the people, the money lenders. And then they would, to get their money back, they had to pay interest, right?
Yeah.
Instead of the other way around where banking was working out. And a lot of times I used to go and ask my dad why State Bank of India has its presence everywhere, but why is it not in this village or in that village? And somewhere I got a lot of insights from Papa saying, how banks discern the business potential of a particular region, not just on the population, but also on what kind of businesses thrive, what kind of businesses or industries are there in that area. And hence it makes more, banks make a lot of money on current accounts. That insight much later, when I started working on the idea of open, somewhere a lot of those information was helpful.
Right.
But yeah, these are some of the things that led me to this space.
Today, we see many women entrepreneurs leading fintech startups, but I'm sure when you started out, it wasn't as common, right? Or was it?
It wasn't. There have been meetings that I have gone into, and people just assume that I was Anisha's secretary or someone. So that those kind of things have also happened to me. But
What were
and
some
that,
of the challenges
when
that
I
you had
give
to
my
face?
business card, they will be like, "Oh, you're co-founder. Oh my, you take care of marketing. You take care of operations." So yeah, those were even before Anish and I got married also.
Oh,
So they would just assume things earlier in the days. Now things have changed a lot. At least 2017, or I would say at least 2015 onwards, things have changed. Fintech incidentally happens to be having a lot more female founders
that's right.
than any other industry or domain that you would be able to take out, apart from D2C probably, maybe. But yeah, uh, fintech has a lot more women leaders and more women founders. And that is something that is unique to fintech in India. It is not
What,
across the world. Across
what
the
would you
world,
say is
that
the
it's really different.
what
And
according to you is the reason?
so last year I was with Paris FinTech Forum, where I got to interact with the entire women in fintech dialogue that was happening across the globe, and I realized that there were way too many women founders in India, and that's just not the thing, because the kind of socio-economic dynamics, the glass ceilings that they have to break to get across, even not just for in a corporate job, but even if you are raising funds as a woman founder in foreign countries, is very, very, very difficult for women founders compared to Indian, VC environments that we get to see. And it's really strange that founder in America or Europe might be facing more biases as a being a woman entrepreneur than I'm facing in the Indian. But that's definitely there. I mean, India has a more conductive environment now for women founders. Yes, there are a lot of places where you're shunned for being a woman, or when you are a women CTO, there are biases that you have to face. Yes, today, even now, investors do ask you when you are getting married as a founder, that what will happen if you conceive and when you have a child. But somewhere, women like Dina Jacob, who is my co-founder in Open, is changing those statements. Like, Dina was fundraising for Open for us through our Series A, and her entire Series A was through her pregnancy. And she went in for delivery, and like 3 days later, she was back on the job. And 1 month after her delivery, she was back in office fundraising for our Series B round.
Oh my
Uh,
God.
so there are such stalwart women whom I look up to as well, who are shutting out those noises in the Indian market, and they are changing the world for a lot many women founders.
Being a serial entrepreneur for 17 years, you've seen many ups and downs. Can you share some of those experiences and the lessons it has taught you? Maybe one or two.
Like I said, don't stop. That is one thing that I have learned. With my first startup, there have always been roadblocks, and in all my, I've done 5 startups till now, all in fintech. Every single startup I've had enough of, roadblocks, but it's always about just thinking a little differently. It's all about, taking that seat back, and finding another way to solve that problem. And if you keep doing that, you will anyway figure out the way to navigate through whatever is the roadblock that you are. So be it, trying to overcome it by looking another direction, or by trying to overcome it by climbing over the problem. As long as you don't get, you just say that, oh, now everything has come to an end. Now what will I do? You just don't throw up your boots and sit. You just keep hustling, keep at it. You would either dig under it, you will go learn to climb over it, or you will take a step back and you will see another route. But you have to keep moving, and just keep moving is something that is a common thread across all my startup journeys that I have seen, and some big failures as well that I have seen myself.
And what would you say has been your proudest moment as an entrepreneur?
It taught me a lot of things around survival, and I can proudly say that I, along with a lot of support from Anish, but both of us, when we initially came to Bangalore, our daily budget used to be 20 rupees. And
Oh,
that is what we used to live on,
oh
20
my.
rupees a day. And that too, not straight 1 or 2 months or something like that, straight 1.5 years of living only on 20 rupees a day. And that mostly meant that you are eating only tiger biscuit and chaya for, because 1 half packet milk, say 1 liter tea ban jata hai, and then tiger biscuit is cheaper than Parle G in those days. So you will be able to survive. You will be able to buy 2 packets of tiger biscuit instead of 1 packet of Parle G, which is more tastier. So yeah, those were grit, determination, whatever. We didn't have a vehicle of our own, so we used to, every meeting had to be through multiple bus journeys. All the coins we used to get, we used to save, collect it together, actually save it literally under our mattress. And the day it just gets out of hand that, now I need to have a proper meal, or the day we are able to afford 50 rupees in all those coins put together, we would go to a nearby Darshini and eat some sambar rice or some curd rice, or, some grain. So those were times that taught me that I can survive no matter what. And if I have lived through that, there's nothing worse that can ever happen. So,
From
uh,
there to Open becoming India's 100th unicorn last year, how have things changed for you?
see, every startup that I started, we have had to go through challenges of its own. Like, at least with Open, I'm grateful that, I had my previous bosses who became angel investors, and there was always funding, on the even the day we incorporated the company. All our previous bets were about, us putting our life savings, whatever we had made or saved till then to, and these are not fancy monies. Couple of startups that I have started, I've started at less than 1 lakh,
Hmm.
right? So it's not like, and 1 lakh also used to be a very huge amount for me at that time. It's something that I couldn't afford. But somehow you scrape things, pledge some gold, do something else, do some freelance gig and get some money and just get the money to start out at that time. But and even in open, there were challenges. Challenges were a lot different. I was trying to build a neo bank, and the premise is that I am going to work and build on top of a existing bank infrastructure. So every conversation with the bank would be like, you're trying to build a bank, you're trying to compete with us. Those kind of things that took almost a year for us to navigate and get done. But once that was in place, one thing we focused on was trying to understand who the user was and what the user really wanted. And that feedback loop we would build back into the product and try and build things that we were seeing that there was a lot of demand for. Somewhere doing that helped us to build and scale the product to the volumes that we are able to cater. Today, more than 30 lakh small businesses use Open for their business financing, for managing all their business finances and banking in a single dashboard. And that scale was not achievable unless we paid heed to what the user really wanted us to build next. So those were different journeys, and being a unicorn, um, I don't think as entrepreneurs, at least Anish and me, have already gone through a couple of journeys. So it is definitely a milestone, but it was not something like a landmark that we were chasing. Uh, we knew that at some point we would become a $1 billion enterprise, and when the time was right, it just happened for us.
Right. What role did your parents and your family play in this journey?
My parents built, at least compared, if I have to compare my parents and Anish's parents were, the government servants, teacher, PWD engineer, folks in Kerala. They didn't know what a startup was. My parents, because they were bankers, probably they've dealt with a lot of entrepreneurs before in their life through their jobs, and hence they knew that moment there is when this girl is saying that she wants to become a startup entrepreneur, when she wants to become an entrepreneur, what is she set against? So somewhere that comfort factor that my parents know that what I'm going through, and then if things really, really get out of hand, I can go back and say, "Mommy, I knew that hour, 500 rupees," or something like that. So somewhere there was a lot of support from my parents because after the initial, fight around why can't you become a banker, why can't you take up a proper job, you'll get perks, you'll have a secure job, your life is set. Those kind of conversations later. But once I realized that I was really passionate about being my own boss and being doing things that I am really passionate about, once they saw that, they made whatever was available in whichever way was possible for them, or whatever they would realize. Not like I used to go and tell them that I'm living on 20 rupees a day. If I would have told them, then probably they might have made it a better way, but I didn't want to put that burden back on my parents as well, because they also have their own journeys and things to take care of.
Yeah. Family support always makes all the difference.
Family support does make a lot of difference, but see, for Anish is a guy who had to run away from house to do startups. He is a 10th standard dropout. He literally dropped out of education and ran away, and then he used to live in bus stands and railway stations to and do his startup ideas. So at least I was gracious that there was a lot of acceptance after the initial resistance. There was acceptance that I got from my family in that, and I'm really grateful for that. And that continues till date. Mummy spends almost 14 hours a day sitting and just praying for us.
Oh my God. Yes, of course. So that was my next question. How does your faith influence the way you run your business and make decisions?
I would say a couple of things on that aspect. One, Christianity sets us for positivity, and this is something that I realized in another realm through reading another book. Somewhere, one of your question is also about a book that I would recommend someone to read. So there's this book called The Power of Subconscious Mind,
Hmm.
and that just says something very basic in our Christian principle: ask, seek, receive, right? And it's something like, you're telling the universe or whatever is the force that this is what I want, this is what I want to build. Once you've said that, you start believing that you have got it. You have achieved your dream. You've got this particular thing, and you once you start believing it, you will automatically start getting it. Be it anything, it doesn't have to be unicorn startup or something like that. It could be something as simple as I want to be a slim, trim, beautiful looking woman. As simple as that. But you make that known to the universal force. And then you start, the more you believe, your subconscious mind will start thinking that, oh, this is what this person wants. And this is what it kind of gets you to, right? You automatically start receiving that. That's something that is a big principle that I have seen in the Bible as well. Muttuvin Torkapadum, or in whatever you would say it as. Once you believe, you ask God, and then you believe, and with undying trust that you will, definitely find that way. So, and then God will Himself make things happen for you. So that
Nice.
is one part of the entire thing. Second thing, being a Christian made me a very empathetic human being. Be it my various interactions, or be at least God made me to be a compassionate person, or someone who empathizes with the world around. And somewhere that in my journey as an entrepreneur, at least has made me think that whatever I do should have some impact in either simplifying someone's life or solving someone's problem. That also made me think differently when I had to hire a team. Somehow, because we are the, non, how do I call this? I mean, we are not entrepreneurs by experience, by education. We are just entrepreneurs by experience. I call Anish a firebrand entrepreneur. So living in those, railway stations and all of it, he got to interact with a lot of folks who were not from the conventional world. And somewhere this guy would always try to bring them back to mainstream. And that's something that I learned from him, as well as from my faith as a Christian, that, you don't have to be having a necessary degree to be working in a particular role. Um, I would say that in open, at least 10 to 15 percentage of the staff, of the employees that we have, are the ones who are not from the normal world. They are people who other companies would have written off as, not eligible for hiring because of lack of education or accurate training. But when we give them an opportunity and we tell them that this is what it is, and some bit of training, after that, for them it's almost like, that kachiturumunu Anish, last straw that you have in your hand, and with that you are trying to ensure that your life is secure. I would tell this anecdote of a guy whom we met. We had gone to Kerala for campus placement, and he just happened to be a driver in the cab. And we had stopped somewhere at an Indian coffee house for breakfast. And we told him that, come now, sit with us. And he took another table and sat. So we all went and sat with him. And Nani started asking him that, Evidana, Nadevada, Endachiya. What we realized is that he was someone who was working in the Gulf, selling the printer papers that are there in POS machines. He was a sales guy. He was established. He saved a lot of money, 4 5 crores, came back to Kerala to settle down, started some Yamaha bike dealership, and then ran into a lot of business losses. And hence he had to he had to give up, stay away from family, and work as a driver. And that's how he got our errand with one of the travel agents. And when we realized that, we were like, listen, you're a sales guy. Why are you wasting your life by just driving around? I'll give you that chance. Why don't you come and do sales for us? And today he's one of the top performers that we have in Open. And he really takes his job really, really seriously, because
What a
for
story.
him, this was his turnaround time,
Yeah.
right? And a family well settled after that. Not
That,
bragging, but at least we try to do whatever little is possible in our own way to touch as many families as possible. And by not having, strict norms around whom we hire, and it's all about giving an opportunity sometimes. And that's something that we both of us learned from Christianity somewhere.
what an answer. Thank you so much. That the story is really inspiring. That is
Thank
a
you.
nice anecdote to share. You mentioned one of the books. Would you like to take that ahead and complete? Would you like to recommend two more books that budding entrepreneurs can really benefit from?
I'm not a avid, being a literature student, it's wrong to say this, but then I'm not an avid book reader. Plus, time doesn't permit as much to, read too many books. But I would say that if there is one book that everyone should read, whether entrepreneur or not, even if it is in your personal lives, I have seen people's lives transform by just following the power of positivity. So, yeah, probably Power of Subconscious Mind by Joseph Murphy is the only book that I would recommend to others. I've seen it change my life, my destiny. I'm sure I've seen a lot many destinies also change, be it to find the right, life partner, but finding the right business to do, finding the right home to live in, finding the right profession to get into, or even for your own children as well. So that
Wow.
and the Holy Bible, that two things that everyone should have.
We live in times when people don't like to read, so hopefully your suggestion will make people take both the books.
I hope so. And there are e-books also available for those who are gadget savvy and not don't want to move around with a book itself.
Yeah, I think the challenge is with reading, not with the device or with the physical book.
So,
What are some of the top skills, according to you, that an entrepreneur needs to have today?
big time empathy. That is an absolute must. You have to be a very humble person. You can't be that arrogant Ashneer grower that you can see. Don't be that. Arrogance doesn't take you anywhere. Don't have attitude. You have to be a very humble person. You have to be empathetic. Only then you would know and value and treasure the people who are with you in this journey. And third thing, never settle. I would say that, no matter what, just keep moving. Don't settle down for, oh, this is convenient, this is safe. Don't settle down saying that, oh, everything is over, now I can't do anything. So just have that attitude to keep moving ahead in whichever situation.
What an interesting journey, Chechi. Like, just the last 40-45 minutes conversation about your life has really taught us so much. There's so much lived experience that we can learn from. Last question. Looking back, if you had to give one advice to the younger Mable Chako from 2006, what would that be? What would be that one thing you would want to, after all these years of experience, what's that one thing that you feel the younger Mable Chako did not know that you can tell her now?
Being humble somewhere, after the first startup. So CashNext was acquired by a Latin American company. We had got some money which we reinvested and built Neotivity, which was a second startup. And yeah, Anish, I was a little arrogant at that time with my team. I was a little over managing or trying to do nitpicking on small, small things. Probably, I feel it is really silly of me to have done that. And but in whatever situation, even in the journey of Neotivity, one thing that what I learned is that the people whom you meet going up the ladder are the same folks you will meet when you crash down. So don't antagonize a single person in this world. Never have cross roads with don't cross off any other person. Every person is important, be it for whatever they do to you in your journey, whether it is a positive or a negative. You learn as much from the positive as much from the negative. So the ones who don't support you teach you more things in life than the ones that actually support you. So never have a antagonizing relationship with anyone.
That's an amazing thought. You left us with a very nice thought. The same people who you leave down are the ones you'll meet when you come crashing down. That's a
Yes.
really interesting way of looking at
So
life.
don't say that I can just step on one person and keep going on. Very Mandu tendency, they say crabs in the well. You just pull one crab's leg and they just try to go over. Really doesn't happen.
Thank you so much, AJ, for taking the time for this. You've shared some really interesting anecdotes and insights from your life. Uh, these are things that we may never come across, and it's amazing how you've taught us so much through your mistakes. So, thank you so much for taking the time for this. I hope all the youth will benefit from hearing your stories.
Thank you. It was fun talking to you as well, Benita. Bye. Bye.